Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. Real football is back. We're super excited. Week 1 has the Commanders facing off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Each and every week, we'll have Opposition Wednesday, where we get to know the opposition a little bit better. For that, today, Greg Allman is our guest. Greg, thanks for hopping on with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hope you guys are doing well.
Absolutely. It is a lot of the same faces, it looks like, for Tampa Bay. Maybe the biggest change is Canales out and Liam Cohen in. I know Baker has some familiarity with Cohen from his time with the Rams there. What should we expect the new Bucks offense to look like, Greg?
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of the same concepts. Obviously, a lot of three wide, probably a little bit more eye candy, but we'll play a little more motion, a little more shifts, a little more misdirection. Bucks really didn't use a lot of that last year. So that'll be what looks the most different. The principles are still the same. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are their top two receivers. They'll use them a ton. I do think they're going to be a little bit more committed to. I think they tried to be committed to the run last year, but we'll be more committed to trying to get a balanced offense. They've added a new number 2 back. They added a new center. Changed out a guard. So I think they got some new personnel to give them a little bit of confidence to maybe be able to run the ball better than they have. They've been dead last in the NFL in yards and yards per carry the last 2 years.
Yeah. Greg, Todd Bowles has a 17-17 record over the last 2 seasons. He also has a 1-2 record in the postseason. I'm just kind of curious how he's received amongst the franchise and the fan base, and is his seat relatively safe there in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I think so. They've won 2 division titles at the same time. So it's one of those where, the 4 playoff appearances in a row is something they've only done once in team history. So they're kind of in a good place. I don't think he'd want to take a big step back, but no, I think well-liked here. He's got 2 years left on his contract. I think, last year when they're sitting there or whatever it was 4-7, definitely looked a little bit more disconcerting for him. But I think the way they finished the year, especially winning a playoff game, that buys you a little bit more leeway, I think.
I think one of the things that concerns people when you have a defensive-minded head coach is losing those play callers. What do you think inevitably losing Canales will be like for the team this year?
Yeah, anytime you reset with a new scheme and a new coordinator, there's uncertainty. And again, Canales had never been a play caller when the Bucks hired him. Liam's only done it 1 year in the NFL or never really had his own offense like he does now. So it's a big step and it's a new step. But he feels, in talking to him, I think he feels pretty sure about what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. I think they've tried to get an offense that caters to what Baker does well. I think, you go back to when he was hired, Baker Mayfield was a free agent. It wasn't a certainty he'd be back with the Bucs. So I think part of the allure of hiring somebody he had a relationship with was the idea that it would give Baker another reason to come back. So part of the they helped each other come back, if you will. I think one made the other easier on both counts. Anytime you have a new scheme and a new offense, it's probably going to take some time to take. Bucks offense was much better at the end of last year than it was at the beginning, but I think they feel pretty good about where it is. Baker, unfortunately for him, has spent much of his career adjusting to new offenses and new schemes almost every year. So it's not something you want to get good at, but it's something he's learned as a regular part of his fall is adjusting to changes like that.
One of the biggest things for a quarterback is the relationship with the center. Graham Barton was one of my favorite picks in the draft. I think they got a really good one there. What does he look like early on in camp?
So far, so good. It's honestly a very stern test for your NFL debut to go up against Payne and Allen. That's not the easy way into the NFL. To get, that might be one of the real strengths that Washington has is those two up the middle. So that's. I think when you think about adding a new center and a new guard, you worry about the front of the pocket and keeping Baker where he has time to do what he wants to do. And this will be a challenge to that. I think so far, Graham Barton's been exactly what they wanted as a bigger, physical, stronger center, somebody who'll be a future leader of this offensive line. But this is still game 1 for him. This is still, he looks like somebody ready to handle it, but you really won't know until Sunday at 4:30.
Greg, it seemed like the Bucks had almost 2 teams last year, right? They started off the year kind of 3-6, and they ended the year 6-2 on a hot streak, even winning in the playoffs. What light switch flipped for them? How did they turn the season around, and what changed for the Buccaneers?
Yeah, I think they kind of found themselves a little bit offensively. There was some injuries, had some inconsistent play as much as anything. And, I think they wasn't that they were getting destroyed in games, they just weren't winning, So I think to get, that last 7 wasn't necessarily a murderer's row of teams. So I think getting some lesser opponents, getting some big wins. It's not to say that, again, they beat Green Bay when there was a lot on the line. They had some important wins in that stretch. I just think it really took them with some new faces, with a much younger team. It took them 2 months to find themselves last year. I think there's probably more continuity, even though they do have a new offensive coordinator. I think there's more continuity in terms of having the same personnel in key spots, where it shouldn't. If it takes them until November to find themselves, it's probably not a good sign. But no, 2 of their first 3 are at home against rookie quarterbacks. They get Daniels in week 1, they'll get Bo Nix in week 3. That's sandwiched around a trip to Detroit, which certainly doesn't look like a win. So I think given that they have a first place schedule, given that they have a much tougher path than the rest of their division, they have to take care of business. They have to win the games when you're a touchdown favorite at home. Their continuity should be an advantage against a team with a new head coach and a new quarterback and a new offense. There's a lot of newness to Washington, to where I think they'll be a much more dangerous team in week 10 than they are in week 1.
It is a defensive-minded team with Todd Bowles there. You mentioned the rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, will have his work cut out for him. Todd Bowles is known to get after young quarterbacks. What do you expect the defense to look like on Sunday?
Yeah, I do. Todd Bowles is a guy that prides himself on a lot of different looks and misdirections, pressure from places you don't expect it. And they've had kind of a mixed bag. There was a while where the Bucs were not good against rookie quarterbacks at all. And under Bowles, they've been a lot better. I think they're 10-5 against rookie quarterbacks since Bowles came here in 2019. Again, some of those wins are more impressive than others. Sweeping the Panthers last year and beating Bryce Young twice doesn't carry a whole lot of weight. CJ Stroud, lit this team up last year as a number 2 overall pick. They got him a little deeper in the season where he kind of had a rhythm and a better sense of him. But he threw for like 470 and 3-4 touchdowns against the Bucs. So they've also had rookies that have handled that pressure really well. But I would think in week 1, I think Daniels has a speed and an elusiveness and a dual threat nature that makes him really dangerous. But I think as a passer, I think they want to do everything they can to not let him be comfortable and not let him see obvious places to throw the ball. So the more different looks they have, they'll bring pressure from, they'll move their inside linebackers outside. They'll have nickel blitzes, safety blitzes. There's a lot of different things they'll do just to keep him from feeling comfortable in his first NFL start on the road. If he gets comfortable, it becomes a much more dangerous game, I think.
Looking at the defense, the Buccaneers have the 4th ranked rushing defense in the league and 28th ranked passing defense in the league. So I'm kind of curious, is that still a weakness on the team right now? Is the passing defense still a concern for Tampa Bay? And what have they done to adjust it during the offseason?
Yeah, they'll have basically three new guys in the 5 in their defensive backfield. That should be improved. They made some changes there. I think the second safety, Antoine Winfield, is one of the best safeties in the league. The safety next to him wasn't a strength by any means last year. So to bring in Jordan Whitehead, that's a guy they drafted, a guy from the Super Bowl team, a guy they like a lot. I think they feel like that's an upgrade. They traded away a starting corner in Carlton Davis, a guy who's been hurt a decent amount in the last 2 years. The guy that replaces him is a fairly young guy named Zion McCullum, a third-year player, freakish athlete. Stepped in as a starter for both Davis and Dean last year and ended up playing more snaps than either of them. But this is still the first time he's gone into a year as an established starter. No career interceptions for him. So that'll be a big change. And then their nickel will be a rookie, a lot like Washington, I think. But they have a 3rd-round pick named Tyke Smith from Georgia that they really like and think can handle a lot. They use their nickels in a lot of different ways, blitzing, dropping in coverage. Obviously, nickel, if you do it right, is kind of handling a lot of different roles. So this is 2 defenses that will lean on rookie nickels to do a lot this year. And some of Sunday's success might be which of those 2 kind of looks like they can handle those duties right away as a rookie in the NFL.
The Bucs won 9 games last year. I looked. Vegas has them at somewhere around 7.5. Surprised by that number?
A little bit. Vegas likes the Falcons a lot right now. I think obviously you add a head coach like Raheem Morris that they see as an upgrade. Kirk Cousins is probably the biggest upgrade any team had at quarterback in the NFL to give him $180 million. So if you watched the Falcons last year, I think that was a team that most people thought was a good team that was just missing a quarterback. So if Cousins can get back to who he was a year ago before he got hurt, that bodes really well for Atlanta. I don't know that Atlanta is a runaway prohibitive favorite to win this division, just because the Bucs have done it 3 years in a row. They're not really giving it up very easily either. So no, 7.5 feels like a little low number. A year ago, it was the same thing where the Saints were kind of the heavy favorites to win the NFC South. And they, again, the Saints finished with the same record as the Bucs. So it wasn't a crazy pick. It's just the tiebreaker went to Tampa Bay. I think this division could very well be the same way. I think it could come down to tiebreakers and two teams at 10-7 or maybe even 9-8 again. So I think, I think most people like the over on the Bucs, but not necessarily by a ton.
So we usually wrap these segments like this, Greg. If Dan Quinn came to you and said, Greg, what's the key to beating the Bucs on Sunday? You tell him what?
Yeah, and he'll get this a lot with a rookie quarterback, but you got to limit your turnovers. I mean, this is a defense that's predicated on getting the ball back, really good with takeaways, and that's obviously a danger when you have a rookie quarterback. So if you can get, maybe you give him a mulligan and let Daniels have one turnover, but he has one turnover or less, they can force one or two out of the box. The Bucs are generally a pretty careful team in terms of limiting their turnovers. That'll go a long way towards keeping them in the game, keeping this a close game, taking some of the home field out of things. The Bucs are finding themselves as a team as well. So I think whichever team can get a lead early can kind of, I think these are two teams that probably want to take some of the burden off their quarterback. You don't want to lean too much on a rookie in his first start. So if Washington can get themselves a lead early, run the ball 2 times out of 3 the rest of the way, that's a lot less mistakes that Jaden Daniels has to make, just because he's not having to worry about throwing 40 times coming from behind on the road in his NFL debut. So turnovers and an early lead are probably two things that'll go a long way for one of those teams on Sunday.
Greg Allman covers the NFC South for Fox Sports, and we appreciate his time today. Greg, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Enjoy the game Sunday.
Yeah,
See you.
All right, George. And now we will rotate. We keep the show going from the Loose Cannons podcast. Stank Bastard is on the show. Stank,
best name on the internet. I love it, man. It's great.
You guys have me following a professional. Greg Allman's is like a legend here in Tampa, and I'm just an idiot with a nice camera and a good microphone. So thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course.
You've joined 2 other idiots who just try to get opinions of those smarter than us. So
absolutely.
Welcome to the show.
Smarter? We'll see.
No, Greg's awesome. We were glad to have him on. Tell us about the Loose Cannons podcast. How long are you doing it? I know you're 1/3 of the group, as I understand.
1/3 of the group. We started doing it seriously during the pandemic. We were doing an audio only type of format, and then all invested in some nicer gear, and felt like people needed to see our stupid faces. So we I have a little advantage. One of my co-hosts, Samar Ali, is like a wizard with the production side of things, and he makes us look better than we actually do. And it's a barbershop style podcast where we talk a lot of junk.
How often? About how long do you guys go? And did you guys know each other before you started the podcast?
We knew each other, but not well. We were more like acquaintances, met up at some events, knew each other as Bucs fans, but by no means we have any real relationship with each other. And then for whatever reason, we found out our type of crazy matched, and it was just like instant. Instantly we had that camaraderie, and it took off from there. I think a lot of people enjoy that because it's something different. You have guys like Greg, and we're not ever trying to be that. He's a bona fide journalist, the best in the business, in my personal opinion. And even though the world is changing, you still need guys like that, on boots on the ground, just knowledgeable in the locker room, out there every single day, follows every move, and is well respected in the industry.
Now, George, this is interesting what they've got going on. Stank, help me explain it to George a little bit. The podcast is part of a Bucs Central TV network, or like tell me
awesome.
about it. I just saw it the other day. It's really cool, George.
That's
cool.
It's a new venture for us. We've been working on it for about 2 years now. It's called the 813 TV, 813 being the area code in Tampa. And not only will we have Bucs related media on there, quite a bit of it, but there's a gambling show with
Awesome,
Benjamin Albright and Jake Arians, Bruce Arians' son. And then we have other content on there as well. And behind the scenes have been building up a network of guys, writers, other talent in front of the microphone to bring something different to the Tampa Bay market. And I think you guys know, because we all fit that kind of niche where I know we're kind of looked at as what's the word that they like to call us? Fringe media.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, fringe media. Look, I can't even say centered. I'm gonna get yelled at for that later when Samurai watches the show. Fringe type media, but you know, we want to do more, and ultimately we're all business owners and entrepreneurs, and saw opportunity to where we could build something really cool. So we just dropped it 2 days ago. It's, you know, like with anything, it's a new venture for us, and we're figuring it out as we go. But so far the response has been incredible. And
awesome,
we get to do what we love, which is talk Bucs football. Albright is my guy, and I knew that show was coming out. I did not realize that that was a part of what you guys got going on. So I'm excited for what that will be. All right, let's see. The two teams here to me are interesting.
They are.
They're not somewhere as in you guys have had a lot of stability with Bowles there. The roster, for the most part, I mean, you're talking about a Commanders roster that's flipped 65, 70%. That's not what's happening necessarily. But yet, I think that they're two teams that feel like they're fairly close. Commanders fans feel like they can go down and steal one in Tampa the more and more we talk to folks, merely because they've got the surprise. But I'm sure on the other end, the Bucs fans are also thinking Washington's coming to town. We ought to be able to rack up an easy one. What do you think the fan thought is?
I like to say that this fan base suffers from PTSD. As you guys know, there's been a long stretch since you've had success. Part of which we're responsible for. I don't know if you guys know that about the Washington franchise. Without us, you guys wouldn't have had 3 Super Bowls. You know, Gibbs started in Tampa, or not started in Tampa, but was there in '78 with Doug Williams. And then we had a racist piece of shit owner who decided he didn't want to pay Doug and was cheap and let Doug go. And then there you go. Years later, you guys have the recipe. In 2 stints, Gibbs wins 3 Super Bowls. And had it not been for stupid ownership and all kinds of other crap, that may never have happened. So you're welcome. Doug's still in the building now, so we appreciate that. And I wouldn't be a Bucs fan without Doug Williams. Quick story. I grew up. I'm older than both of y'all. Maybe, I don't know. Grew up, and my parents had a business right across the street from Tampa Stadium. There was a mall there, and my dad did business with Doug. And so I didn't even know who the Bucs were. I didn't know anything about football, and it had this kind of cool relationship. My dad's like, he's the quarterback of the team over there, and he started to take me to games in the early '80s. And then, of course, Doug left, and the rest is history. But I wouldn't be a fan without Doug Williams. Doug was my guy. Yeah. And it's funny because there's probably a lot of Redskins Commanders fans that can say the same thing about Doug Williams in Washington. So it's an interesting correlation I wouldn't have probably put together right away. What is, in your mind, the outlook for this year? What makes a good season for Tampa Bay? We can have to continue to do what we've been doing. It hasn't been pretty. You know, even in our division, we hate the Saints. Nobody really respects the Panthers, and Atlanta's been kind of circling the drain for a while since Quinn left, honestly. So it's been weird though. Like, we've been eking it out, even with, you know, in Brady's last year, we barely won the division, and then, you know, eventually lost to the Cowboys in the playoffs. Last year, same thing. We won the tiebreaker, completely destroyed the Eagles, which I'm sure your entire fan base was like,
we appreciate that.
We love you for that, right?
Thank you.
Because we also hate the Eagles, by the way.
Absolutely,
right?
Most people do, yeah.
We have, you know, the Rondé moment, you know, and got to send a McNabb and Andy Reid pack in and won the Super Bowl. You know, that's our first Super Bowl, and then we got to knock them off their pedestal, although they were kind of circling the drain last year when they played us. It doesn't matter though, because earlier in the season they took over our stadium and completely destroyed it. It looked like a Pop Warner team versus an NFL team. It was absolutely embarrassing, and to have that retribution in the playoffs was cool for us. And then we were real competitive against Detroit and ended up losing that game. But it was a weird season. And back to your original question, are we confident? I'd say for the most part, we're not the confident bunch, just because we never know what it's going to look like from week to week. One week we look great. The next week we get destroyed by, a rookie quarterback, and CJ Stroud throws for 500 yards and has a coming out party against us. And that's been like not just last year, but throughout our history. Kirk Cousins had you like that game against the Bucs.
Yes, he did.
For whatever reason, quarterbacks love to put their stamp on the Bucs, and that's like their moment. And so would it surprise me if we came out flat and Jaden Daniels looked like the next great quarterback? Wouldn't surprise me, but I think we have momentum right now. Baker's a different kind of leader than Tom, but for what somehow filled that emotional, that leadership gap pretty flawlessly. The team really got behind him, and we were a different team at the end of the year and actually, looked formidable, played well, didn't beat ourselves. And so I really don't know. I'm hoping that we carry that momentum. There's been some change, as you and Greg talked about, with our OC position, which to me is a bit of an upgrade because I wasn't a big Dave Canales guy. And then we went out and drafted towards our weakness and picked up a center and looked good running the ball in the preseason, which, okay, we'll see if that translates. But I don't know that we're confident, but I think people here in Tampa expect to win that game.
What are reasonable expectations for the season? Because coming from a third party, I feel like you guys are being disrespected a little bit, right? I feel like the Falcons are projected to be the NFC South Division champs, and they're kind of the hot, sexy team this year. I love the firepower by the Bucs. I think they have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield. I like that. But from my perspective, they're a little bit aging. Is that fair to say, or are you confident in them? Or what are your thoughts on the Bucs this year? And I guess, do you feel disrespected by the Falcons as well? I'm kind of curious about all that.
We're one of the youngest teams in the league now.
Okay.
It's we've been old, we've gotten young. There's been a lot of turnover roster wise. You still got Mike Evans and Levante David, but outside of those two guys, there's most of the roster is real young.
Okay.
And so that it's like a good and a bad, right? It's gift and a curse. You've got youth, you've got, hopefully that translates into them being able to be a little bit tougher, have more legs under them, but that inexperience could come back to bite us. So, everybody's crowning the Falcons. On paper, they've added a lot of pieces. Raheem Morris is new. They're like the darling, kind of like the Lions have been, but they got to go out and prove it. I mean,
true.
Kirk had a squad in Minnesota and ultimately kind of fumbled there too, not doing as well as he probably should have. We went in there last year in the opening game and beat them. So it's not like he's not had a talented group around him. And it doesn't, we all have seen where you try to put all these pieces together and there's no chemistry. Bijan, everybody's thinking he's going to be the next guy, but I mean, he almost got benched last season. So they've got to go out and prove it, and they've got to be successful in doing so. And we're big Raheem Morris people here in Tampa. We love the guy, but he was extremely immature and wasn't the greatest coach, and maybe he's learned a lot, under McVay and his time with the Rams, and he's coached defense and offense. And, wouldn't surprise me if he had those guys out there really fighting, but they've got to prove it, man. So we know what we are, I think. That's probably our biggest advantage. We know the roster, a lot of guys on this team still have rings. We know we can win the division. We proved that, and we just have to go out there and continue to execute and let Atlanta do what they do. It's funny because somebody asked Jason Light, our general manager, that in a press conference about a week ago, and he's like, everybody's picking the Falcons, and he's like, good, they should pick the Falcons. Like, he's a little bit of a
chip on your shoulder
guy. You're right.
Yeah.
So he's they like the disrespect. I think a guy like Baker feeds off of that. I think
I can see that.
Expectations aren't always your friend. And for a guy like Baker, just having that, nobody cares. I'm circling the drain, my career circling the drain. He came out swinging last year, and that's kind of the feeling I get from this team right now. Like they do just feel disrespected, but they got to go out and do it too.
one of the things we love about these Opposition Wednesday shows is it allows us to learn some we didn't maybe know about before.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize also, George, that they had flopped the roster and were
Yeah,
young.
maybe. Yeah.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
this thing, that draft class from this year that you guys had, I really liked it. You got some guys that are ready to put in time right away. Tell us a little bit about Graham Barton. Tell us a little bit about Bucky Irving, and the number 2 wide receiver. Was he drafted last year?
No, Jalen. Well,
Really?
Or
we've
he
got
was
Mike,
this year?
Mike and Chris Godwin. We drafted Jalen McMillan, who was before he, kind of got nicked up at Washington. He was really their go-to guy, and then
Player.
Rome and all the other guys, had big seasons. So he's lived up to the hype. I will say this: in the preseason, he's looked incredible. They've already put him in as our 3rd wide receiver. I think you'll see him get a lot of balls. He just seems to be kind of a natural. He's not a game breaker by any means. He's just one of those kind of polished guys that makes everything look easy, but isn't going to wow you with over the top type speed. He just can good route runner, good hands, fluid, intelligent, everything you want out of a guy. So we're excited about him. And then you mentioned Bucky Irving. Bucky's already been given the number two spot behind Rashad White, who's probably the most disrespected player on this football team, because we just haven't had the ability to run inside the tackles. Really bad front for the last handful of years. And the other rookie they drafted, Graham, has seemed to cure some of those woes. So it's a different front than Brady had, that's for sure. They've always been I'd say an above average pass blocking offensive line. We've never been able to bully our way down the field. And Rashad getting hit in the backfield was a pretty consistent thing. So having some room to run, because he's more of a Le'Veon Bell type back, he needs that push to find a float through the holes. He's got great vision, phenomenal receiver. I think he's going to surprise some people this year. And then Bucky got that work done in him. He's also a good inside guy. You wouldn't think a tiny little guy like that would live on the inside, but he's not a speed guy. He's more of that, fluid guy that can really dance and find the holes and squirt through, and then also a good receiver too. So I think we've upgraded our talent at that position, and we needed to. We really did, because Baker had success last year, and Tom too, by the way, even in the Super Bowl run, without really having a running game you could count on. We ran despite ourselves a lot of time, and the passing game under Bruce was so dominant that we had some success running the ball, but it wasn't our forte. And I have a feeling we're going to lean on that quite a bit more, not just because a coach says we need to run the ball. That was Canales' downfall. It's like, we need to run the ball. We need to run the ball. We need to run the ball. And it was just like spinning your wheels. We were terrible at it. So why are you continuing to put yourself in behind the chains type of situations, and trying to, even when you're passing on first down, you default to the 2nd and 10 draw, and everybody knew it was coming. It was very predictable under him. And so Liam being a little bit more of a crafty guy, from what we've seen so far, I'm kind of excited to see what he brings to the table. So
just kind of curious. I know we heard about the big names, Antoine Winfield, Levante David, Mike Evans, obviously. I love talking to content creators that are there and just kind of feed deep into this team. What are some players that are under the radar from someone in Washington that may not have heard of that you're interested in watching this season?
Oh, I got one for you.
Let's do it.
Write it down.
Okay.
You don't know this name, you will. It's Yaya Diaby.
I actually know about him.
Yeah.
Sacks I see. I heard about
him.
Yaya
is the real deal. He got banged up here in preseason, so they've been kind of, how they do. They're not going to chance him getting injured anymore. By the way, if my internet goes out, there's like a monsoon here right now, so I apologize if I lose power or something. So Yaya would be that guy for sure. And then
that's the end, or what are these outside
linebacker?
Yeah,
he's linebacker, and in the
speed rush guy.
Todd Bowles is a crazy guy. You might see him dropping into coverage He had Vita Vea dropping in the coverage at times last year. So like, or over the past few seasons. So they're going to move around a lot. Todd's going to bring guys from everywhere, so that's just what he does ultimately. And but yeah, he's an outside guy, pass rusher, plays good against the run, really solidly built. We've got a bunch of unproven guys. He's probably our most proven guy, even though this is only his second year. You got a guy like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, which you may have never heard of, JTS. On the other side, another Washington guy who's shown flashes, but production isn't there. And then we drafted an Alabama outside linebacker, Chris Braswell, who's looked really good in the preseason too. So we lost Shaq Barrett, who was our, money in the bank type of guy, and due to injury and off the field stuff like losing his daughter, and ultimately decided to retire recently. And so we've got to find it. And Todd won't just sit back, by the way. If the front isn't getting it done, he's going to bring everybody and anybody, and that puts your secondary in peril. So we've kind of lived by the sword and died by the sword because he's had to manufacture pass rush, which is why we've been so up and down, honestly. We don't have a lockdown guy, right? We don't have that Kramari. We don't have that. We have guys that are good enough. Sometimes Jamel Dean looks great. Sometimes he looks like he's his first time on the field. You've got a young guy in Zion who's only got a handful of starts playing corner, and then our safeties are our strong suit on the back end. So it'll be interesting to see what the game plan is for a guy like Jaden. We're a fast defense. So usually quarterbacks haven't really been able to hurt us with their feet. Another guy on the inside, Kalijah Cansey, looked phenomenal last year, came on late because
they've had some really good drafts the last couple of years. Yeah.
Right. Vita Vea is not human. Like, he doesn't make sense what that guy can do at his size. And so speed wise, we've got speed. So keeping Jaden from hurting us running the ball, I think is probably, I think we're ready for that. It's when he breaks pocket, and can the secondary cover for the additional, second or two. That's where guys like that usually will end up hurting us. So we'll see. By the way, Rachaad White, Jaden Daniels, they're like BFFs.
Okay.
Even wore Jaden Daniels' jersey in the locker room last year.
Cool.
Who's tasked? You spoke about the young secondary. Who's tasked with covering Terry McLaurin on Sunday? It will be a committee type deal where they star a corner up and he'll run the whole time.
Jamel's our number one now. So we lost Carlton Davis, who you could arguably say has been our number one, and it'll probably be Jamel now. It really depends on if y'all keep him in one place. Are you guys moving him around and trying to get different matchups? So it's either going to be Zion or Jamel. And if we don't get a good pass rush and Jaden gets comfortable, like anybody in the NFL these days, he's going to eat against us. And then hopefully it's, we're able to do the same and we make it competitive, but we just don't know yet. And it's going to be all about how much pressure we can get off him, on him, I should say. How uncomfortable can we make the kid, and then how well we're able to kind of control the clock and do what we want to do on offense. Cause it's no picnic against your front as well, front four, front five, whatever. I don't know if you guys run a 40 or 30 defense. So it all depends. It's
brand new defensive
right now.
Brand new defense. So even for those of us that are around it a lot, aren't exactly sure what it'll look like on defense in Washington. What does Mike Evans, time catches everybody? How much does he still have left in the tank? One of my favorite players of all time that's not on my team, but he's getting up there.
He is, but he seems to be getting better, if that's a thing. I will say this, like the guys who were there with Brady brought something to them mentally. Right. That you bring a guy like that into the locker room, he shows you how to work. He shows you how to take care of your body. He shows you what it takes, to be a leader, and not even verbally, just through osmosis. You're going to see that guy brought confidence to the locker room, which was our thing. What ultimately got us over the hump. We had talent. We didn't. Jameis you couldn't be confident in that guy. No matter how confident he was in himself, you couldn't be confident in him. With Brady, you knew that you were going in the battle with a guy who always gave you a chance, and that's what won us the Super Bowl. So Mike and the guys in the locker room and Godwin, you've seen them, the changes in their body. Like physically, Mike looked better last year than I think he has in his career. Looked good, fluid, some run after the catch, which he's not really known for. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's taken care of himself and didn't seem to miss a beat. You know, he missed, if anything, it was the offense that was catching up with him. And so I don't expect too much of a fall off, to be honest with you. Our general manager said that was his biggest, point of emphasis in the offseason was bringing Mike back. You would have thought it would be Baker, and it was kind of a package deal from what I understand, right? Baker wouldn't come back if Mike didn't come back, and Mike had suitors out there. Houston really wanted him, and he's a Texas guy. So his wife said, I want you to be here. I think he wants to retire a Buck. He's a legend. We don't have many of those guys, and it'd be hard pressed to find a fan in this area that doesn't love Mike Evans, man. And really across the league, outside of the state of Louisiana, everybody outside of there loves Mike. He's just no ego, does it the right way, man of the people. If you saw him at Starbucks, he'd take time to talk to you. He's just down to earth, just a overall good dude. And to have that be the face of your franchise is awesome, because we haven't many guys like that. So, we don't have a crazy historical ring of honor like most teams do, man. It's been a weird thing. We've historically the most losing franchise in pro sports history, and then somehow have 2 Super Bowls. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'll take it.
Yeah, Mike Evans is the dog, man. He had 1,300 yards last year, 13 touchdowns. I definitely hold him in high regard.
Yep.
One more question for you from my end. So, I think we're hearing about Todd Bowles' the defense and being exotic and aggressive.
Yep.
I'm curious about the offense. It seems like this is outside perspective. Baker Mayfield's going to throw the ball downfield. He's going to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's a speedster. Yep. We know David Canales left. Liam Cohen's still here as well.
Yep.
Greg Oman talked about maybe like more motion offense, more like window dressing kind of walking in. I'm curious if you're hearing that as well.
Yep.
And do you think there's going to be more what do you think the personality of the offense is going to be? Are they going to start fading more towards the run now, or are they just going to be gunslinging on Sunday? What are your thoughts on that?
I think like a lot of teams right now,
yeah,
they're taking that Rams model that somewhat kind of like what the 49ers do, a little bit of what Miami's doing,
just whatever happens,
and using motion to kind of give the offense some information, and hopefully use that to your advantage. Like you guys, we don't know how successful that will be, because that's what Canales said he was going to do too. Came from Seattle, but also off of that tree, and it took some time to see it become successful. At the beginning of the year, there was really no creativity to it. And maybe in Canales' defense, we couldn't run the ball. So it's hard to be a balanced offense when you're getting your ass whooped up front and immediately getting beat inside. And, we were supposed to have Ryan Jensen again last year, and he just couldn't come back. The injury was too bad. Hainsey ended up having to start again. Really just not suited for running the ball. Not a bad pass blocking center, but from the run blocking perspective, god awful. We converted a tackle into guard. He was real light and lean. He's put on some weight, and then we've got Ben Bredesen at the other guard position. And it seems like we've got chemistry. Tackles, we've got some of the best in the game. Tristan Wirfs, also not a human. Watch him jump out of the pool and do freaky stuff for a man his size and girth. It doesn't make much sense at all. So we've got our tackles are the strength of our offensive line. And if we're able to run the ball, look out, because that just makes it a lot tougher for defenses to defend against you. I have a feeling Chris Godwin being moved back into the slot in that slot role that he ate under Arians, and look what the Rams do out of the slot. And he's a physical freak. He could end up having a complete resurgence. He's healthy. He's in a contract year. Don't be surprised if he gets 9-10 catches in this game. So it's going to be what the Rams try or do, whether or not we have the horses to do it. You know, we'll see what Liam brings additionally to the game. We'll see it, but he's kind of a red ass. Like he's not David. Dave was that guy who would smile through his pain and always keep a happy face, even when things look terrible. Liam's not that guy. Liam will undress a guy. So he's almost like Bruce in a way. Like he expects a higher standard. We have a real close relationship with Rashad White, and just behind the scenes told us that he brings something different to the table. He's excited to be in this offense because he really had no chance to run the ball in the last two regimes, not under Leftwich either. So if we can run the ball, and this is the test you want, right? You want to see whether we can run the ball. You, like us, have strength in the middle, and that's what we've been going up against in camp, right? Who better to cut your teeth against than Vita Vea? If you're a rookie center, you're going to get your ass whooped for a while, and then hopefully you've built up a little scar tissue, but you don't know because you get used to a guy. Or we don't. He's never seen this type of front before on a professional level. They could eat his lunch. We don't know. So it's a really a litmus test for everybody involved.
Yeah, week one.
And, yeah. So we're excited, man. Football's back, right?
I'm terrified of our secondary going up against those receivers that you have. All right, we end all these shows this way. What do you think the score will be?
I think it'll be closer than a lot of people think. You know, I mean, most games are within a touchdown of each other. I think this game will be no different. I don't see either team routing each other. It's gonna get the team up to speed. Most of these guys haven't played a half of football, much less a quarter of football, at least on our end. So if maybe one team comes out sharp and it's a route from the beginning, but you don't really see that very much in the NFL, especially early on. If you guys play fantasy, man, the scores are usually down at the beginning of the year. So I'm gonna be a homer, and I'm gonna say we're gonna win this game, but I'm gonna say it's gonna be like 27-20. I think it's gonna be within a touchdown, maybe a bit of a nail biter, into the third quarter, some sloppiness on both sides. Defense comes in to save the day for the Bucs a little bit. I don't know. I mean, speaking of our receivers, and we do have talent. We're not a speedy group. We are not Miami from that perspective, right? We're not going to, we don't have that guy realistically outside of Trey Palmer, who's been banged up a little bit, and I don't know how much action he'll see this week. We're not that over the top style, although throw it up and let Mike catch it because he's a 6'5" freak of nature, and just do what Jameis did, and your chances are he's going to come down within the end zone either way. But we'll see, man. We don't know what to expect here either.
You said it was a monsoon out today. Do you know what the weather's supposed to look like on Sunday?
I don't. My wife, who was like an old lady, keeps I'm surprised she hasn't given me an update yet because she loves the Weather Channel. No clue. If it's anything like it is this time of year here, it rains every day in Florida.
Sure.
Right around this time of day, it's 5 something, almost 6 o'clock here now. We get a shower during the day, usually later in the day. So that'd be advantage you guys if it rains, because otherwise you're going to deal with this heat, which right now is no joke. It is an advantage. It's a 4 o'clock, 4:25 start. So it's going to be, ridiculously humid and hot from the kickoff, and maybe a little bit of a relief towards the end of the game. But heat usually are supposed to play to our advantage. We don't play well at home. So I don't know.
Tell us the podcast schedule.
Loose Cannons records Monday, Thursday, and I don't even know our entire the 813 schedule, but there are shows every day now, from gambling shows to complete NFL shows. If you're not a fan of the Bucs, and you want to hear Benjamin Albright and Jake Arians talk about the league, and they just dropped their first episode today. Highly recommend it. Great group of guys. And we bring, we bring a little bar stool to the game. I'll say that, right? It's not your average show. I'm trying to be on my best behavior right now. It's you guys are keeping me on the rails, not me. Typically, I'm like the color where I'm like the 13-year-old child in me will come out and just say something ridiculous, like talk about ass or something, like make all kinds of and find sexual innuendo in anything. Like, how's Baker going to deliver the ball? And I'm giggling in my head. So, but anyways, yeah. So we just try to keep it loose and have fun with it. And, you know, at the end of the day, we do this because we're addicts, probably like you guys.
Absolutely.
You know, I was looking in the newspaper when I was a kid and trying to find anything about my team. And now you can find stuff everywhere. So, you know, I've always been this crazy about the Bucks.
Well, brother, we appreciate you stopping by today. This was a good time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good luck. And, you know, we'll follow each other on Twitter and have our fun and talk some shit. I will say, and maybe you can repost it, I'm known for my my game week list of don'ts. So I try to train our fan base to not inadvertently support the opposing team. So like I'll be putting a list together of things that our Bucks fans can't do, like nothing pigskin related. You know, if your son's name is Jaden, you can't talk to him this week. Like weird things like that. Just because I feel like I'm superstitious, and I feel like that may help us win. So I'll put the list out. It'll be ridiculous, and you can send it off to Washington Nation. I'm trying not to be like Bowles and say Redskins, but you can send it out to Washington Nation and see what they think about it.
Yeah, tag us in it. That'd be awesome, man.
Tag you both in it.
Yeah, best of luck with 813, man. That sounds awesome. Good luck.
Peace out, man. Yep.